Hey, it's Mr. Ing going over the Chapter 2 test, versions X, Y, and Z, taken November 4th, 2019. Multiple choice, write the equation of a parabola given the vertex 0, -3, and a point -2, 5. You're given the vertex, which is HK, and a point is XY. So I'm going to use vertex form of a quadratic and solve for a first. I'm going to put in my y value of 5. A value we're solving for. X is -2. H is 0. And then your k value is -3. And then here we're just solving for a. -2 minus 0 is -2. And then -2 squared is 4. So that becomes 4 times a, or 4a. I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and then divide by 2. A is equal to 2. Now, I'm going to use the A equals 2 and put that in here. You put in your H and your K, and the reason why you don't put an X and a Y, because any order pair on the parabola is a solution. We're just saying that this is one of their solutions to help you find the A value. So in this problem, you'll just write x squared, right? 2 times x squared, because x minus 0 is just x, and you have minus 3. So your answer is y equals 2x squared minus 3, which is letter choice B. Question number 2, list all the possible rational zeros. So we're going to use the rational roots theorem. Basically says you take the last term, which is 2, and you find all the factors, which is 1 and 2. And you take your q value, which is your first term, and then all the factors are the numbers that multiply to 6. 1 times 6, 2 times 3. And you'll take a combination of all the pluses and minuses. So I like to put my, let's just use this. 1 divided by 1 is 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. And then you go through and do all the other numbers. 1/2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. 1 divided by 6 is 1/6, and 2 divided by 6 is 1/3. I'm crossing off. Those are repeated. And I already have a 1 here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers to test. And you're taking a combination of positive and negative. So essentially you're testing 12 numbers to see that if you substitute it in, you would get a remainder of 0, which would tell you if it's a factor or not. But in this case, they're just asking for the possible rational zeros, and your choice would be, you're looking for 1 and 2. So not these, right? Because that's 3, 1 and 6, nope. And then 1/3, 2/3, and 1/6, and 1/2. So 4 fractions, and there it is. Choice A is your correct answer. Question number 3. Make sure to show all your work and box your answers. I told you to graph this and label your intercept. So first thing you're going to do is you have a polynomial of cubic to the power of 3, and then you have 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like you can factor by grouping. So if you put all 4 terms in there, look at the z I'm about to make. And then here you're just going to find the greatest common factor. That has a 3x. X squared. They have nothing in common, just their 1, and this would be their 5. And remember, you can just multiply to get inside the boxes. So x squared plus 5 and 3x plus 1 is your binomials. This is how you factor completely. Now, to get your intercepts, in this case, to find an x intercept, you make your y value equal to 0. Subtract 1, divided by 3, x equals -1/3. Here, you would subtract 5, so you have x squared equals -5. Take the square root, so you have x equals plus or minus the square root of -1 times 5. The square root of -1 is I. The 5 stays there, so your answer is x is equal to plus or minus I radical 5. Basically what it means is you have a cubic function that goes through -1/3. And you have 1, 2, you have 2 complex solutions, so these are not going to go through the x-axis. And then if you make x equals 0, your y value, the intercept, is going to be 5. I gave you 3.75 if it needs to find the zeros algebraically, meaning if you just use a calculator, maybe you factor it completely and then didn't find these values, or you just used rational roots theorem. Factored with a graph with no X intercept, so you didn't write that. And then plus 3 if you just got the factored of binomials only, that would give you 3 out of 4. And then only the correct graph, meaning you probably just put in your calculator. Extra credit, I asked what kind of weekend are you going to have. If you wrote something with the words fun, safe, and legal, if you got all 3, you got 1 point, and then half point if you got 2 of them. Let's look at the back side. Make sure to show all of your work and box your answers. Write a polynomial function of minimum degree in standard form with real coefficients whose zeros are 2 and 1 plus I. So what you need to do is, if it's a 0, that means x is equal to. The reason why they call them zeros is that you have a y coordinate that is 0. So I'm going to make that one essentially, this is 2, and then you have 1 plus I there in green, and then its conjugate is 1 minus I. Remember, complex numbers come in pairs. Imaginary zeros come in pairs. You're going to put this now into factored or intercept form in blue here. X minus, X minus, X minus, and then you put in there your greens. So your binomial is x minus 2. There you have to distribute, so that changes it to a -1 and -I. And then over here, this changes everything inside. That becomes -1 and a positive I. I decided to multiply the blues first. Let's see if I can find that down here. Multiply -1x, xi, positive xi, -1x, positive 1, -1i. Negative xi, positive 1i, and then negative I squared. So this becomes, the blue is x squared. These two become -2x. These are opposites, so that equals 0. They cancel. These are also opposites, so cross them off to equal 0. Remember, I squared is equal to -1. And the opposite of -1 is positive 1. So this one and this one become 2. Then I'm going to multiply this binomial times this trinomial. X times x squared is x cubed, -2x squared, 2x, -2x squared, positive 4x, and -4. These are like terms, so that becomes -4x squared, and that becomes 6x. So here's your answer there. I gave you 4 points if you had all your work and you got this answer. 3.75 if it's all correct, but maybe you made a plus or minus mistake. 3 points if you just had these binomials here at the very beginning. And then 2 points if you gave me the zeros, or you have a formula like the intercept form. Question number 6. Write the cubic function whose graph is shown. So I have a cubic function here. A little bit hard to see, so let me zoom in there so you guys can see this. A lot of you guys interpreted this wrongly. Get a second to focus. So it's pointing there that this is -5. This one is 1, 0. And then this one is 4, 0. And what I did is I wrote each of the first letters is your x-coordinate. Now, pay attention, this one is not a 0. It is just 2, -2. What does that mean? It's just an order pair to help you find the a value. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to solve for a. You have x equals -5, x equals 1, x equals 4. You're going to put those into your binomials. So you have, remember in brown there is intercept or factored form. And since that is -5, that becomes +5. -1, -4. And then your x coordinate from up here, x is equal to 2. So every x value you're putting in 2. Every y value you're putting -2. And what we're doing here is we're solving for a. You get 7, 1, -2. That's -14 times a. So divided by -14. This is really 1/7. So your a value is 1/7. Now, once you know the a value of 1/7, you can put that back in. You have your binomials from above, basically the simplified form there. And then if you actually multiply all this out, the blue here, and then I took my answer for the blue and multiplied it by the yellow here. So this is all that. And then my answers, and then I multiplied by 1/7. So 3.5 points if you just found x cubed minus 21x plus 20, or basically you didn't find the a value. You got 3.5. If you got 3 points if you got all the binomials correct, meaning you found all of this essentially, but no attempt for the a value. And then 2 points if you had one binomial correct, maybe like x plus 5. Question number 7. Zoom in for you. It says find all the zeros. You have 4 terms here, and they won't work by factoring by grouping, so you're going to have to use the rational roots theorem. I took my last term, which is 6, and all of its factors, 1 times 6, 2 times 3. And then same thing with 6 here. And then these are all of my combinations of numbers. Now you can use your graphing calculator. Let's put that in your graphing calculator. 6x cubed plus 5x squared minus 17x minus 6. Zoom 6. And what we're going to get is this sketch right here. And you can kind of tell by the whole numbers that is probably a 1.5, 1.5, which is the 3 halves there. And then this number, negative 1/3, and negative 2. Now, if you didn't know that, you can also do this calculator command. I'll do it to one of these. Second, trace, and then it says calculate the 0. And you basically make a guess. So it says go to the left. I'll do this one here. To the right, which means going down, and then exact. That's my closest answer. And there you have it, negative 0.33, which is negative 1/3, comma 0. What does that mean? That means for either of these, you're going to get a, if you use synthetic division, I did it here, here, here. And I did it 3 separate times to show you how using synthetic division helps you reduce the degree of the polynomial, and then that helps you find the other part of the polynomial that you can factor. Okay? Let me just show you one of these. Let me show you this one, negative 2. I take my coefficients, 6, 5, negative 17, and 6. Bring that one down. Multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. My answer is 6. Add, you get 0. And that's what we wanted. We already knew that all of these 3 would give us a remainder of 0. And then basically you could take this and you could just factor that. Remember, it's 1 degree less than what you started with. So if this is the power of 3, this is 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. So I factored in just using quadratics. So I have a times c, b value, my 2 numbers. Take those, put it in here. First term is 6x squared with a minus 3. And then you're just finding the greatest common factor. 3x, 1, 2x, and negative 3. So my answer is going to be x minus 2 becomes x plus 2 in your binomial. 3x plus 1 and 2x minus 3. Now to find the zeros, you just use zero product rule, set them equal to 0, and you get negative 2, negative 1/3, and 3 halves, which are the numbers we saw already on our graphs. You just have to show it to me algebraically. Now, these other 2 columns you don't have to do, but I just wanted to show you that if you chose your own adventure and you got, say, you started with negative 1/3, you'll actually end up with the same binomials and you get the same zeros. I just wanted to show you that. So, if you factored 3.5 and you factored the quadratic incorrectly, meaning from here, you got that wrong, I gave you 3.5. I gave you 3 points if you just left it as 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. Here, remember it's telling you to find the 0, so it means x equals. If you found just one of these zeros and not the other two, then I give you 2 points. Or if you use synthetic division only to find the zeros, basically, or if you don't show me your work, you won't get full credit. Okay, so that was question number 7. So 4, 4, 4. 3 questions on the back. Oh, this one also is. So 16 for the free response. Multiple choice was 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 16. And then name and period. So that gives you a total score of 22. 22. Hope that was helpful for you to complete your test corrections. Good luck.